Howdy. I always never know where to put that thing when I'm done. I shall not even try to imitate Minnie Pearl with that howdy. This is Sippin' and Talkin' on, you saw the title card, the Whiskey for Beginners channel. As you can see right now, a thoroughly amateur production. Tonight, the bottle I have, and I've mentioned on other videos I've recorded, I don't know if I've uploaded any of them yet. Eventually I won't need to mention it, but right now in the early days I've recorded maybe a dozen of these videos now, most of which I have not uploaded yet. But I need to keep mentioning, for now at least, that I don't upload them necessarily in the same order that I record them. And until this becomes not common knowledge, this is part of what I want to talk about tonight. You're seeing the effects of some of it. But anyway, this is not the first time I have had Texas pot still bourbon from Balcones Distilling on these videos. And since I have not even 20 bottles, I think I have 18 right now. Since I don't have hundreds of bottles, these are going to repeat fairly often. And because I don't upload them necessarily in order of recording, but just come Sunday when it's time to upload one, I just pick whatever I feel like uploading at that point. It's possible to get 2 or 3 or 29 videos with the same whiskey in a row. But the last time I recorded with this, I killed the bottle and brought this bottle out to show you I have more. This is my favorite whiskey in all the world. And we pour us some, what's this wee stuff, Kimosabi? This is a joke I learned from an Indian. These days, of course, they'd shoot me for telling it. All the oh so superior, self-appointed guardians of everything that isn't white. These people are always white and they always have money. But I learned this joke from an Indian. Lone Ranger and Tonto were out riding across the plains one day, and over the hill in front of them came a bunch of Indians. Well, they turned off to the left. There was another bunch of Indians. They turned off to the right. Another bunch of Indians. They started to turn back. They were surrounded. Lone Ranger says, "What do we do now, Tonto?" And Tonto says, "What this wee stuff, Kimosabi?" So what is this wee stuff? I'm here by myself. I don't know how many people are watching at any given time. I do now have, as of this recording, 57 subscribers. It's 01:17 on the morning of the 19th, if I remember correctly, of August. So at that point, I have 57 subscribers, more than I've ever had, 5 more than I had just a couple of 3 weeks ago. How many of these subscribers like what I'm doing? I don't know, but for a long time I had 52, it would go down to 51, come back up to 52, so somebody apparently likes what I'm doing and the way I'm doing it and why I'm doing it. But what I wanted to talk about, and I'm 5 minutes in and just getting to it, is what age does to you. Now, I'm only 65. That's not old. You don't even start getting old till you hit 70, by my reckoning. And I decided this in my teens, so this isn't anything I come up with just so I could say, well, I'm not old. I'm not Howsomever, I'm not as young as I used to be. Next week on the 29th of August, as I record, you may not see this video till weeks after this happens, but on the 29th of August will be my 46th wedding anniversary. When I turned 46 years old, I got married at 19 to 46 is about 27 years if I'm doing the math right. When I turned 46, I'd only been married 27 years. And now, well, 27 times 2 would be 54. I'm not there yet, but I'm only 8 years from it. Will my wife and I be married come 54? Who knows? I'm 65. She's 78. And at any age, things can happen to you. You know, I live in Albuquerque. Somebody could just be driving by and shoot me dead. That's what kind of a town this has become. The way these people drive every day, I'm concerned that somebody's going to do something stupid and smash into my car. It's been about a little more than 2.5 years ago. I was driving home at night. I had a green light. The other driver never disputed that. And she did a left turn right in front of me. I stomped on the brakes, or I'd have T-boned her right in the center of her minivan where kids were sitting. I wound up only hitting the back end. And the airbag didn't even disturb my glasses. I didn't get hurt. They didn't get hurt. And once I discerned that, I got out of the car, went over and asked if they were okay. They were. She asked if I was okay. I said, yeah, I'm okay, but I'm a little peeved because I had a green light. She just looked at me. But anyway, you know, anything can happen to anyone at any time. However, the older you get, the more likely certain things are to occur. You know, cancer is more likely to hit. A stroke is more likely to hit. A heart attack is more likely to hit. Just dropping dead of old age is more likely to hit. There is a reason that this is my favorite whiskey in all the world. Now, the only kind of whiskey where I have anything you could even remotely call broad experience is bourbon. Next is rye. Then Scottish and Irish are way back there. I've had one sample of an Indian whiskey, and if I can ever find Paul John Nirvana, I'll buy a bottle. It reminds me of Balcones Lineage, which is a barley whiskey. But this stuff is good. It's smoky, it's dark, it makes me think of sitting by a mesquite fire while the barbecue cooks, eating on marshmallows. Toasted marshmallows, I mean to say. Man, there's wood fire in there. There's a mesquite fire in here. But the specific application of Age Tonight is that I nearly didn't record anything because I am just wore out. Had an easy day at work, but what day was it? I was going to say it was Monday, but it was closer than that. It might have been Friday or Saturday. I had an attack of IBS that had me exhausted. I got home from work and it was all I could do to stay on my feet long enough to greet my wife. and later that night the attack continued. Well, when that happens, your innards are empty. And so 2 or 3 days have passed, and I had a continuation, a milder, I call it an aftershock for what that's worth, an aftershock of that, and it wasn't near as bad, but it took it out of me. Now, I didn't realize it for a long time, not until 2019 or 2020, that I have IBS. But I'd been having gut trouble for years and years. And I had some bad attacks, and they didn't do me this way or they didn't do it as much, because then I was younger. And it doesn't matter how in shape you keep yourself. I'm in shape. Round is a shape. But it doesn't matter how much in shape you keep yourself. As you get older, there are effects. And one of them is, even if you keep yourself in shape, you're just not as strong as you used to be. You don't have the stamina that you used to have. You don't have the reserves that used to be there. And what didn't faze me much, if at all, 40 years ago, now is a serious difficulty. Now, I'll be honest, I don't like pain. It scares me to think of torture. If they were coming to take me to torture, I like to think that I would resist anyway, that I would hold out as long as I could, but I can't depend on myself to do that. I would never deny Christ under torture. But if I just thought they were going to hurt me, I would probably I'd probably tell them everything they wanted to know and make up as much more as they wanted to know. In Marlow, Oklahoma, I had a friend who was a Vietnam vet. He'd been wounded in action, had the Purple Heart, among some other things. If I remember right, one of his decorations was the Bronze Star with V device, which isn't the highest decoration. There's the Bronze Star, the Silver Star, then the Medal of Honor, so it was third highest, if I'm remembering the precedents correctly. It's been a long time since I knew much about that. But I believe what he had was the Bronze Star. I know he had the V device, V for valor. He had earned that decoration through his bravery in combat. And I think it was on his third tour. He did 3 tours in Nam. I think it was on his third tour. I believe it was the Viet Cong who captured him, not the NVA, North Vietnamese Army. But whoever captured him, he was wounded, and he showed me the scars. A couple of the bullet holes were in his foot, and they shoved sticks in the wounds, which would not be pleasant, tortured him in various ways, and he said he was telling them everything he could think of and making it up because of the torture. And knowing Don, I know that he didn't tell him anything crucial. And of course, that early in the process, the real interrogation hadn't begun. He was able to escape, so he was only a POW for, I think it was just a few hours. But I don't like to think about that. And it's coming to Christians in this country. It's coming. The persecution has already begun. It's at a low level, but it's moved beyond mere harassment. It's moved beyond simple hostility. Persecution has begun. and whatever else you think of Donald Trump, he's not doing a thing about it. I'm not a Trump fan. He has done a lot of good stuff. He has done a fair amount of pretty bad stuff, too. And there are people who hate me because I'm not a full fan of his, and people who hate me because I support some of what he does. Tough toenails to both of them. But age does things to you. I don't like pain, but I would rather hurt than have nausea, and IBS gives me nausea. But here's an interesting thing. I don't know where it is in one of the letters to Timothy. Paul says, drink a little wine for your stomach's sake. They didn't have distillation of liquor in those days. That came, I believe, approximately 1,000 years later. They distilled various things, but not liquor. Why it hadn't occurred to them, I don't know. Why it didn't occur to anybody before Thomas Edison to create a working light bulb. And others may have tried, but why didn't the idea that worked occur to anybody? You can't quantify those things. You can't answer those questions, but it's really intriguing. Now, as I heard a preacher on a tape one time, okay, I'm at 17 minutes. I try to keep these under 25. I heard a preacher on a tape one time that a neighbor had say, well, my name's Timothy and there's nothing wrong with my stomach. Fine. I have no trouble with that. My name's not Timothy. I do have IBS, which causes stomach problems. Now, I didn't start drinking whiskey for this reason, but I have found that when my stomach's upset, that first glass of whiskey helps. It isn't a cure-all. It's not a panacea. It doesn't take away completely the discomfort, but it helps. And if you had told me that was going to be the case, I would have thought you were joking me. It never occurred to me until I realized that that's what was happening. Does whiskey help with anything else? Well, you drink a sufficient amount and you don't feel your shoulders hurting. And mine's been hurting constantly for a couple of weeks now. Arthritis. Fred Sanford, I got arthritis. There's a joke a friend of mine and I have at work. Two different would-be thieves who didn't want me to see him steal and therefore were mad when I wouldn't ignore him. This was on separate occasions. These two different people, one a man, one a woman, called me, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'm just quoting these people. I would never myself call anybody this word. Black people do. Therefore, it's okay for me to quote people. Anybody who disagrees, you're free to disagree. That's free speech, right? But these two different thieves called me a nigger. I think I'm a white dude, ain't I? But my friend and I have this joke. Actually, I need to give you just one more piece of background. There was a couple who created a big ruckus one night because the cashier wouldn't sell them alcohol. My friend backed up the cashier, and she's white. The couple was white. They said she was racist for not selling them the alcohol. And so we have the joke. She won't sell white people alcohol because she's racist. She'll sell it to me because I'm black. And of course I'm not, but why not make fun of fools? Another thing that age has done has given me a perspective on the way our society is now. Now, it's easy, I know, to look back at the good old days and forget the drawbacks that existed then. You know, I remember my dad bought a $10,000 brand new car, and I didn't believe it when he said it because I'd never heard of a brand new car, unless it was a luxury car, costing $10,000. Now that's a used car, but back then it was a brand new Mazda. And you know, you look at that and you say, wow, that's cheap. Well, our income was also lower. I don't know, you know, I was in my teens. I wasn't inquiring into what our family income was. It wouldn't surprise me, though, if in the simple dollar amount, I am now making more than our family did then. And if I had to, yes, I could finance a $10,000 car, but it wouldn't be brand new. I can remember when dropping a dime meant using an actual dime in an actual payphone. On the other hand, getting the dime was a little tougher. You know, I remember when in LA, gas was 40 cents. And sometimes cheaper. There'd be gas stations on every corner of an intersection, and they'd have a gas war. And they'd chop their prices way down trying to get the business away from the others. But in the time of 40 cent a gallon gas, you also were not making 20 bucks an hour to flip burgers. So the good old days weren't necessarily as good as some might remember them, but I do remember when being a Christian might not have been true of everybody on the block. You might be one of just a few Christians on the block, but people didn't look at you funny. They didn't think you were stupid. They didn't think you were deluded. They just differed with you. I can remember when people on one side and on the other could differ on political points, differ on political parties, but be very good friends nonetheless. I remember that. I can remember when Republicans would criticize a Republican president if he did something stupid. And you don't see that much now. Donald Trump has done stupid things, but try to get Republicans to admit it. And I can remember when the Republican Party was far to the right of where it is today. I can remember when the Democratic Party was where the Republican Party is today, or even where the Republican Party was 20 or 30 years ago. Things have changed. This is not the United States I grew up in. That's one of the things age does for you. You get even if it's a very small one, you get a historic perspective. I was born in 1960. I don't remember 1960, but I was alive when Jack Kennedy became president. I don't remember him getting shot. I was 3 years old, but I was alive then. I was alive when the British invasion started and ended. I was alive for punk rock. I was alive for disco. I was alive when in 1 year we had Woodstock, the moon landing, Apollo 11, and Altamont. I was alive when the Challenger blew up and the Columbia broke up on re-entry. I was alive when, I was actually alive when Khrushchev was the Soviet dictator. And I was alive when the Soviet Union broke apart. And so I remember things, I can compare them to today. I have that historical perspective, even if it is just a very infinitesimally small slice of history. I said earlier I try to keep these things under 25 minutes. I'm over 25. I could keep going, but I won't. And being worn out today, I can't think of a proper toast, so let me give you an old military toast. We remember those of us who are or have been in the military, and if you've been watching many of my videos, you know I'm ex-Air Force. We remember those who in the course of doing their duty died, whether in combat or in simply going out, as the Coast Guard does, into dangerous conditions to help others. We remember them and we say, absent friends.